The KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission. Our kingdom is your stage.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this very first masterclass by the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission on proposal writing and pitching. I have Dichaba. Hi, Dichaba.
Hi, Siswam, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. So, proposal writing. Why proposal writing?
Well, I think more than anything, because it's really a skill. It's something that every creator should know, because it's the business side of things. It combines both business and storytelling, so it's fundamental if you want to get your idea across and produced.
Okay, so today, what is our session focusing on?
Um, I wanted to start with a masterclass that allows for the creator to be able to develop a certain set of skills that allows them to become to go on autopilot on a daily basis. Give them a bit of a framework that allows them to become a functional creator on a daily basis. Because sometimes people think that, well, all I want to do is get my story out there, but there is a process of creation that you need to go through, and if you can find a way to automate it, it means you're always creating, you're always coming up with stories over and over and over. And that's where I want to start. I mean, it will be easy for us to just say, hey, here's a template, just go and start writing. But, it's important for there to be some kind of system that a creator uses.
So, everything starts with an idea, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's not even waste any time and hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Siswam. Everybody, welcome. My name is Dichaban Titi. I am a. It's always hard for me to describe myself, but I write, I produce, I consult, but more than anything, I'm a creator. I'm always trying to find a way to tell a story in a different way, new way of telling a story. I'm always trying to find new stories to tell. Work with producers to help them sharpen their proposals before they submit them. So proposal writing is something that I'm quite familiar with. So I think before we get any far, let me just introduce you to the what this masterclass is about, so that we do things in a linear way. And so the framework, the whole idea is really to say, from thought to viable idea. Because let's be honest, we all have a bunch of ideas. Some are going to work and some are not going to work. Sometimes also these ideas have to be funneled or have to be channeled through a certain way of thinking so that you prepare them to be ideas that you can be able to produce. So that's basically the overall picture that I'm going to be presenting in this masterclass. And so the two key elements that we're going to be presenting for the rest of the day. So I'll start first with from thought to idea, and then Sitando will come with indie filmmaking. These are two fundamental components of that anybody that wants to be a creator should be able to understand thoroughly and practice every single day. But let's granularize the session. So beyond the introduction, we're gonna talk about a framework. What is a framework? Why you need a framework? I think of it like a system, right? And why should you care about proposal writing? The third element is going to be how to help you develop a strong foundation of proposal writing so that it's effortless going forward, and also how you can get to know your story in depth and know it more than anybody. The last element will be how to help you how to know how to simplify your idea, because often, and I've been guilty of this a lot of times, that once when you get to a point where you're starting to write, there's a way sometimes where we write where we forget that we're writing for somebody, we write for ourselves. And as a result, even the language that we use is not built, is not created to communicate to somebody else and simplify it for them, so they don't work hard trying to read our stuff. So simplifying and communicating your idea will be the last element of the masterclass. So Again, I want to be clear on what you're going to be learning in this masterclass. We want to train you to become an intuitive creator. That for me is very important. I struggled for many years trying to dabble until I realized that you can't dabble. If you're going to become a creator, become a creator. If you want to be a storyteller, become a storyteller. If you want to be an executive producer who hires people to tell a story, then be that. The second part is we also want to help you avoid the pitfalls associated with proposal writing. There's a lot of those. I'm sure some of you have tried and you've had challenges here and there, and you're not alone. There exist a lot of challenges, but there are ways that you can be able to circumvent and avoid those pitfalls. So that's going to be a second objective of this masterclass. So I want to start at the beginning. So every idea, every thought has an ancestor, right? It started from somewhere. You didn't just wake up one morning and have a thought. That thought started way back in the days when you connected with some piece of information that has lived inside you for a very long time, right? So for me, I found that first I had to be intentional about creating. And once I became intentional about creating and I had a system, it allowed me to always be seeing everything around me and being able to see what an idea is and what it's not. So it's fundamental that you get the same way, and you need a framework to do that. So just to give you an idea, some of the most notable successes in the world are based on a framework. At Toyota, for example, the originator of the company had already started creating machines when he stumbled upon an idea to build cars. But he also realized that as much as his system was tailored to be efficient, he also understood that it comes with a lot of wastage, and he needed to figure out a way to limit wastage. So he started traveling around the world, and then in the US, where he found out he stumbled upon a method of limiting waste for his company, so that Toyota doesn't only become a company that sells cars that are efficient and uses less fuel, but that it also has another element where it becomes cheap because the company has figured out a way to create less wastage. Netflix has in the background, this is what we don't see, because when we watch, obviously we see a lot of content, but behind the scenes there is a team of developers that are continuously working every day, using a specific system to find out what you like, what you don't like, so that they can take that information and give it to the commissioning editors, who are the people that are commissioning the content. Typical example is you watch a show, then you skip like 5 minutes. From Netflix headquarters, there is a team that is able to see that, oh, Dichaba doesn't like violence, for example, and they get to see that, okay, cool. So next time we recommend something to him, we must recommend something that has less violence. That there is a framework behind the scenes that allows for them to be able to harness that information so that they can serve me better. And I think the most typical one is that you guys would have experienced as well is when you walk into a bank these days, right? There's that system where you walk in and you say what you've come to do, and they hand you a piece of paper. And by doing that their framework allows them to be able to say, okay, this person has come to collect a card, that person has come to withdraw money, that person has come to open a brand new account. So they don't have to go to a teller who's not equipped to deal with those issues. So their framework then allows them to be able to ensure that you go to the right person, so that it lessens the amount of time that you spend in the bank or in the queue. All of these are frameworks. So you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with me as a creator? Look, because a framework is a structure around which something can be built, you can create your own framework that can allow you to be a better creator. After years of reading this and reading that, trying this and trying that, and being told, this is a classic piece of advice that writers will give you: just write. Just write. Just write doesn't work. Like, I tried it so many times and it doesn't work when you're not clear about what you have to write. So a framework then allows you to be able to collect all that information. It allows you to be able to have a structure so that when you start writing, all the pieces are in place. Your idea has evolved from just a thought to something that is viable, that you know you're not wasting your time with. So it's important to have a framework for that regard. And so I think the next question to ask is, why do I need a proposal, right? A proposal is a business plan. I mean, you would have heard a lot about entrepreneurs needing a business plan to initiate their business. Without a business plan, I mean, you can find many people that can tell you that I started without a business plan, but a business plan makes it gives you efficiency. It allows for you to be able to see when you make mistakes. It allows you to be able to track and analyze and see where the company is doing well and where it's not doing well. You don't have to go through a lot of failings to figure out that things are not working, because you can pick it up very quickly because you came up with a business plan. It helps with operations, marketing, pricing. At the onset, if you're pricing yourself out of the market or not, because you can see that this is how the price I had in mind and this is how my competition is pricing. You can also liken it to a project plan. Without a project plan, you can imagine trying to build a skyscraper. If there's no project plan, how are you going to guarantee your client delivery? How are you even going to know that you can deliver it at a certain time? So having a project plan is fundamental. So is having a proposal for your story. It allows it's the story of your project, really, because your proposal reads like a story. You are telling a story of where your concept came from and what it is. Why should people care and why should people finance it? Think of it this way. If I came to you and I said, I'm guy 1,000 rand there, invest in my business, you would have tons of questions so that you know that your money is going to the right place. That's the same situation that the KZN Film Commission is in. The commission wants to know that, do you know what your story is? Do you know how you want to tell it? And can you communicate it to somebody else? So that they then are able to sit there and say, okay, it's a viable idea, it's compelling, it serves a good purpose, so let's fund it. So that is why your proposal is fundamental. For me, there's no other way around it, and you shouldn't even try to look for a way around it, because a proposal is required for you to motivate other people to support your idea. So the other thing I mean, for me, it's fundamental for you to see it, as I have outlined there, that it motivates funders, distributors, broadcasters to commission or invest in your project. Without motivating them, they're not going to put money on the table. But also, I need to bring it to your attention that as much as we're saying write a proposal, really, as Simon Sinek says, companies, institutions, channels, broadcasters, funders, they invest in people, not necessarily ideas, because a bad person can destroy an idea. A good person can take a bad idea and turn it into something good. And the reason I'm telling you this is because your proposal, your storytelling is indicative. It says a lot about you as a creator. So if you are a creator that has a system, a creator that understands what they're doing and why they're doing it, and is passionate about what they do, then you're going to make it easy for a funder to fund your work. They are inadvertently funding you as a creator. And it's only if you ever get to pitching that they will be able to meet you. But because of the work you've done on paper, you are selling yourself to them. So take yourself seriously as a creator. Be intentional about being a creator. That's fundamental. So let's talk about how you bulletproof yourself. I love defining things, because I think when we understand things better, it makes us it gives us it gives us direction, right? So an idea is a formulated thought or an opinion, right? So in other words, you cannot have an opinion about something that you don't have life experience for, right? If I'm going to talk about climate change, if I'm going to talk about something South African television, history of South African television. If I'm going to talk about riots and marches, I do so because I have life experience of those items. Therefore, I have an opinion. So every idea comes from somewhere. And that's why in the beginning I said every idea has an ancestor, right? So you need to put yourself in a situation where you are able to build that ancestry. So I think it's important then for me to outline the 4 points that can help you build a mental framework that can allow you to build effectively. So the first one is inputs. And inputs really means everything that is incoming, like incoming into your mind, right? The things you know matter. And so if the things you know matter, it means you always seek to try and know more. You need to work harder to know more, know new things, discover new things so that you're always building a strong knowledge base and you're expanding it on a daily basis. So you need to become a serial information collector. If there's something to be read, pick it up. If there's something to be watched, watch it. Find way to always be consuming. Be interested in people. I mean, there are people in your hood that you should know more about. The gentleman that lives around the corner who's a principal. Have you ever had a conversation with them? The old guy who's always driving a wheelbarrow, collecting stuff. Have a conversation with him. Find out, why are you doing this? Where you come from? Who are you? Because the more you get yourself into a framework where you are consistently collecting information, that information is gonna come to fruition someday. So you expand your worldview by knowing more. What I do every day is I try and read at least 2 articles that have nothing to do with the things I'm interested in, because they allow me to know things that at that time I may not necessarily know exactly where I'm going to use that information, but I know through experience that sometime in the future, there is going to be a moment where I need it, often in pitches and in writing. But the most fundamental thing is I'm on autopilot right now. I don't even think about it. I just pick up something and I read, and it then simmers somewhere in the recesses of my mind, which then speaks to the idea that if you read, if you become a reader, if you become an active reader, your horizon is forever expanding. And I think Werner Herzog's quote speaks volumes. Read, read. Otherwise, you'll never be a filmmaker. Can you imagine a filmmaker who doesn't read? I mean, where are you going to get your stories? Where are you going to get your information? What foundation do you have to be able to see or hear a good story when it eventually comes to you? So you being able to recognize those moments, being able to recognize something brilliant because you read something somewhere 8 years ago, that's fundamental. It's something that you should always be trying to do. The second element is, because you're now reading and you're collecting information, it means you're also curious, right? Then what's going to start to happen is there's going to start being sparks that pop up in conversation, in reading something, in meeting someone. You're going to be standing with somebody and you'll find that ideas come to you a lot more because your worldview has expanded. So those sparks are important. You being able to read between the lines is fundamental. Of course, there's times when you'll get excited about something that isn't necessarily worthy of your time, but it's fundamental that it's something that you are aware of and you are consistently trying to find it, right? Like I always say, life will always conspire to bring you gems, to make you aware of moments, to show you where the best story is, because you are ready. It's like when people say that success happens when preparation meets opportunity, or when people say you will not win if you don't play. It's the same principle. The more you expand your worldview and you make that a function of every day, something that you do every single day, you then give yourself an opportunity to be able to stumble upon a great idea. And maybe stumble upon is the wrong word. You will discover more new ideas on a daily basis. So be curious, engage, and discuss. Talk to people, even if it's people that taxi driver. You're in a taxi. Have a conversation with him. There are things that they're going to tell you that will become a foundation for what you do in the future. So the third element is that you need to audition your idea. Yeah, you heard me right. You need to audition it. You need to validate it. You need to test it. Because you can think about it this way. If you are a creator who's on autopilot, it means you probably get a couple of ideas, a month, right? Like it happens very often for you to find yourself in a situation where there's a new idea that pops up. So, I mean, can you imagine writing down every single idea and pursuing it, and often discovering that this thing doesn't work, I just wasted my time? Because let's be honest, there are ideas that shouldn't be pursued. There are weak ideas, there are terrible ideas, and there's good ideas. So you should be in a situation where you allow yourself to be able to ensure that you are discovering new ideas on a daily basis, and you are learning a lot of new ways of testing your idea, right? Sorry, just one sec. I just need to. All right. So don't waste time with maybes and permutations. Should I? Could I? A good idea will always jump out at you. And if you make your business to always be creating, you will also start to be able to throw away bad ones very early on. And you won't necessarily have to be putting it through a specific test in a sense. In a sense, what I'm trying to say is your testing methodology will improve over time to a point where it's just happening up here, and you don't necessarily have to write anything down or work on anything specific to test it, right? So here's a couple of ideas on how you can run your tests, the things you should be thinking about in order for you to sort of be sure that your idea has been test driven, right? So you need to ask specific questions, and don't just ask them. Go find answers, because the answers are going to help you with regards to ensuring that your ideas have been tested, right? So the first batch early on, why should this story be told? Ask yourself, why now? Why should it be told now? What problems would I be solving by telling the story? What need would I be fulfilling? Right? Ask yourself that question, because sometimes some things are nice to have, guys, but nice to haves don't necessarily make compelling stories. You need to be able to push the boundaries so that you are able to tell the story that needed to be told that will blow people's minds. So ask these questions. The second one is, and this one is designed specifically to say, if there's something out there that already exists that is in the same vein, that you allow yourself to be able to know about it, so that you even are aware of how it was told and how you can make sure that you tell your story better and bulletproof it, right? So has it been done before? Is it similar? Is a similar story or film? If no, why? If yes, how was it made? Because that information will help you. The third element is engage and listen to the target market. I mean, I cannot stress how important that element is. Target market, target market, target market. If you don't know who you intend to watch your story, then honestly, why are you trying to tell a story? Because each story must have a target market. It must have a target audience, right? So if I'm creating a film about a group of young people that are into, let's say, house music, right? And this is based around them trying to pull off a party. You better know who's going to watch that film. Because for me to walk into a group of my peers, or an old age home, or my house with my mother and my grandmother there, and say, hey guys, watch this, I'm completely missing the point as far as who the target market is. It's fundamental that we don't make schoolboy mistakes by trying to sell stories to the people that it's never meant for. Know your target market, understand your target market. That's, for me, it's the most fundamental function of a creator. That's not something that someone has to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself, right? The fourth element is, how would you get your idea to market? How would you produce it? How would you distribute it? How would you get it out there for it to be viewed and consumed? You need to also be clear about that. You need to start researching so you understand. Am I gonna approach the KZN Film Commission for for this so that I can show it to my community? Am I going to go to a broadcaster and allow it to be seen by a mass market? There needs to be clarity in your mind as to how am I going to get this to market, and therefore who is the best person to fund it. That's fundamental. If it passes those, then you're good to move to the next part, which is refining and polishing your idea. I mean, as you can see, these nice shoes, being treated very well there. That for me is indicative of how you need to approach your idea. It's very precious to you. It's something that it's fundamental for you to treat it well. So when you get to polishing, that's the part where you've already said that it works. So now you need to spend time with it to polish it. I can't tell you how many filmmakers have gone into pitches, have approached me and want to talk about a half-baked idea. If it's half-baked in your mind, it's going to sound half-baked to me. And you better believe that when you're sitting in front of a panel or you are submitting a proposal to them, that they're going to see through it, that this is half-baked. This person didn't do any work on this idea to develop it whatsoever. And trust me when I say you will get a rejection. No one is going to fund that. So you need to do some work to ensure that your idea has been refined, and that's the next part of what we're going to talk about. So this segment is about bulletproofing your idea. You need to expand your knowledge of your character or your story in order for it to be refined. So how do you do that? So the first thing that's important that you need to understand is that nobody should know your story better than you. Nobody. I want to frame this for you. So imagine that you are it's first day of production. You've got directors, you've got cast, you've got crew, everybody's there, right? If there are question marks about story, who do you think they're gonna look to find the answers? You need to help them find those answers because you know the story better than them. So you being able to know the story, you being able to is related to you being able to communicate the story to somebody else. It's even fundamental for you if you hire writers at some point to execute the project. You need to be in a situation, in a position to be able to communicate that to somebody. You need to be able to see when they're doing it right and see when they're doing it wrong. So, and that starts with you being able to know your story better, right? That's the most fundamental function of your job as a creator, right? So how do you get to know your story better then? So unless you have you work in a company with, staff of 30, 40, 50 people, you're not gonna be able to brainstorm a story with other people. Creators often work alone. You work in your bedroom, lounge, wherever is most comfortable for you. But you're normally alone in the middle of the night, working on a concept. So for you to be able to know how to mind map is going to set you up. I'm going to give you an idea here as to how to mind map, but I think there's tons of videos on YouTube that discuss mind mapping. Invest time in understanding mind mapping because it's just as easy as grabbing a pen and a piece of paper and fleshing out an idea that allows you to start asking questions and see things that you would not have seen before. That's very, very, very important. So let's say, you have an idea, main idea. Your main idea can have a whole bunch of related topics. So if you can start fleshing out related topics, you'll start to see that each related topics can have a child topic. And that child topic will end up having a grandchild topic, right? So let me help you visualize this with an example, right? So if you think about, let's say we were creating a film about the impact of climate change on African communities. What would happen is one child node of this would be that you want to describe it, you want to define it. Another one would be to ask a question like, why does it matter? Why should the audiences care about the impact of climate change on African countries? So you've got your question in, and you are all set to try and answer it, right? Now, if you look here, for example, in terms of defining, you can start, creating another child node. What language or vehicle should I use for maximum impact, right? That is as a result of you understanding that you have to define it. And you understand that because I'm working with a target market, an audience, I need to have a specific language that can speak to that audience that will be able to describe or communicate what climate change and its impact on African communities, right? When you look at this one, why does it matter? Why should audiences care? Again, there can be a child node. What is the best way to help Africans connect to what's happening elsewhere? Because for you to explain why it should matter and why they should care, you may want to use examples of what's happening elsewhere in the world to show them that this is why it should matter. And that, again, gave birth to another piece, which is what is the best historical reference of climate change for Africa, right? So that's also fundamental because now you start to see that, okay, so, there's other elements that I can add. The one down here, which events or characters will help me to best visualize the issue? Now you're starting to dabble in the stories. You starting to find characters that may be closer to you or far away that can help you visualize and give this story personality, right? And then another element, which obviously relates to this, is in looking for these characters, you may start to see what has been reported. You can be able to look through a whole bunch of publications to try and find out what's been reported. And that connects to which experts did they use in those publications in order to explain, to tell the story of climate change. As you can see, it's integral, but it's something that I did by myself. I just took a pen and I fleshed it out, but I was able to evolve the idea from the just the one liner that I had that gave birth to the idea, and then start fleshing it out. Now you realize that you've got lots to do. You need to get, to be in a position to try and get a lot of information in order to be able to answer those questions, right? So once that's happened, now you are well versed to move to the next stage, the most fundamental stage. I cannot stress how important this stage is, guys, because often people think that creators think that, well, if I want to research, I can hire somebody. Sure, if you've got deep pockets, you can do that. But let me bring this to attention, though. There's nothing as painful as when you're writing, you have to call somebody and say, hey, give me more information on this, give me more information on that. If you do it yourself and you get yourself into the frame of mind that you have to do the research, you accept and you fall in love with the idea, it empowers you. And also, one of the other things I've realized since I started as a researcher, and it doesn't matter how much I try to download everything that I researched into a document. There's always a couple of elements that may be left out of the research that if I'm the one writing the proposal, it actually empowers me because there is a moment where it crystallizes, and that's fundamental for you to be able to be in that position. So where do you start research? Where do you look for these elements? So it's important for you to be clear about what you're looking for. Are you looking for facts and figures? Statistics, for example. Are you looking for people, items, places? Or are you just looking for stories? Each and every single one of those has specific outlets where you can find it. But I group them here together, to say things like journals, newspapers, academic societies, institutions like the KZN Film Commission will have a wealth of information based on the work that they've done over the years, right? Libraries, businesses, schools. There is no place that doesn't have a piece of information. So whatever you're trying to create, always find out which entity can I connect my story to, or which entity is best suited to give me information with regards to my story. I know a lot of people like to sit on Google. Yes, Google is fundamental. It's an amazing, but it will not beat certain other elements like one-on-ones. Being able to go and see your character and sit down with them and let them tell the story. That stuff you can't find on Google, right? Being able to even pick up a phone and call them, that that's something that Google can't necessarily give you offhand, right? And also, networks. You got networks. I'm sure wherever you live, there are networks of people that that can be able to allow you to harness some of the information there that you can be able to learn more about societies. Bombay Stockfele, for example, right? Like, of course, they know what is their specialty. Stockfels. They know so much about Stockfels that if you were doing a film about Stockfels, there's no best place to go than Stockfels. Don't go to a bank. Banks picked up on Stockfels very late. Go to the ladies in your hood that have run Stockfels for years. If you're looking for somebody to tell you about the impact of alcohol, who better to see than an alcoholic, right? So what I'm saying to you is that there are multiple outlets for you to find your information. And directories. I don't know how many of you guys know about Yellow Pages, but I grew up, in the era of Yellow Pages, where it was the most fundamental tool that you have. So I've gone through Yellow Pages. There's nothing you can't find in Yellow Pages. So go and find it. If you have a bit of money and you're looking for characters or people or information that is perhaps a little bit outward, one of the most fantastic tools I've started using is these online questionnaires. There are tons of platforms that allow you to be able to create a questionnaire and funnel it through social media for people to click on the link and then go and give you that information. Of course, you'll have to part with a few rands to sometimes even pay some of those people that give you information. But it's a tool that is used effectively, that works, and something that you can begin tapping into, especially if you want to be a creator for the long haul, right? So research is fundamental. It's not something that comes later in the project. It's not something you have to wait for to be in production to start tapping into. It's something that you have to start, connecting with, doing yourself early on in the process. And if you're a serial collector of information like me, it will happen a lot sooner. So that empowers you to communicate your idea. But in communicating your idea, you have to be to allow yourself to remember that you and what you know are probably in a position where you may not necessarily, your first draft may not be simplistic for someone else to be able to understand it. And as I said, I've been guilty of that for a very long time. And that's why I started playing around with the Feynman technique. The idea here is that if you can explain anything, any concept, if you can explain rocket science to a 12-year-old and they get it, not only get it, but they get excited about it and want to practice it, then you've done a hell of a job. You are in a position to go sell it to somebody older, etc., etc. So now you would have already gone through point number one. You will be in a situation where you know exactly what you want to sell, you know what your story is, you are very clear about it, right? So having done this, you now are in a position to say, okay, let me move to step number two. Find a 12-year-old. There's lots of them. They don't have to be your own kid. You can talk to the kids around the neighborhood, find a way to connect with a 12-year-old and try and explain to them that you're trying to create a documentary, you're trying to create a film, maybe a silent film. Like, how do you tell a 12-year-old and explain to them to be excited that you are creating a silent film? What words do you use to describe it, right? It's a challenge. So if you can overcome that challenge and this child is excited, then you know that, okay, I'm going in the right direction. This is something I definitely need to invest my time in and explore. But I can guarantee you, in the early days, 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up with a child going, huh? right? At that point, you need to move backwards. You need to go and review your explanation. You might also have to review your information to figure out what should I be saying and how should I say it. Let me be abundantly clear. Just the fact that you've got a story is great, but unless you can communicate it to somebody else other than yourself and your family members and have that person excited, then it's not going anywhere. It's going to live on your computer for years to come. No one is going to want it, because who will want something that isn't necessarily functional, that doesn't empower, that doesn't get other people excited enough to be able to fund it, much less put it on a screen and have an audience that can be able to be excited. Some issues, are for the purist. I get that. You may be wanting to talk about engineering. You may be wanting to talk about rocket science or climate change. And maybe the 12-year-old that you connect with is not necessarily somebody that understands. But that's an opportunity there. The fact that they don't know about climate change and that they don't care is an opportunity for you to test drive your communication skills. Then give yourself a challenge to then go and try and figure out, how do I communicate to them? So my philosophy is, when I when I write a proposal and I walk into a pitch, I always look for an opportunity to educate my audience without making them feel disrespected. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's something that you can definitely do. So think of it this way. You're coming in to pitch this series about traffic car accidents. And you walk in not making assumptions that your audience know a lot about the subject matter. So what you do is you make sure that you include a couple of slides that explain key elements of the story that you want to tell, right? Road traffic accidents. And allow them to have an aha moment. They themselves are probably drivers, right? But they didn't really know. They hadn't looked at it the way you want to approach it. You have a moment there to educate them. And as you educate them and they have an aha moment, the first thing that starts to happen is you gain credibility. You start being somebody that they realize. This person knew, first of all, they knew that I might not know about this. So they went and made sure that they collect information to help me understand it. Two, they're like, okay, so this person clearly has become somewhat knowledgeable in this subject matter. Therefore, we could trust them with our money, right? So that for me opens the gateway. It opens the door for you to have access to the funding. So back to the 12-year-old. You've done all that background research. Now you come back to the 12-year-old. You find a way to explain to them what you mean about road traffic accidents, what you mean about certain things, so that when you start telling them about your main topic, that they have an idea of what you're talking about. And therefore, it's easy for them to get excited about what you're describing. If you pass stage 2, you no longer have to go back to stage 3. You can jump to stage 4, because now you've test driven the explanation and the communication. Now you can put it on paper, because you know how to simplify it. Simplifying is just about one of the most fundamental thing in as far as your ability to communicate your idea. Don't make your reader work hard. There is no reason for them to read your proposal if you're going to come with jargon, if you're going to come with these terms and these ideas that are out of this world, that they themselves have not had access to before. You will absolutely miss the mark. So always make sure that your communication of your idea is simplified. And I love the Feynman technique because it's so simple. It's so simple. Like I use my kids to test drive a lot of these ideas, and I find that if I'm in the middle of explaining and I'm looking at my daughter and she's looking at me with a blank face, I already know that no, this is not working. So I need to move on, go back, rework, come back and simplify. Again, you might be wondering, what does this have to do with writing a proposal? It has a lot to do with writing a proposal because it has a lot to do with you, the creator and the writer of the proposal. If the writer and creator of a proposal is not prepared for the job that they're doing, then you might as well shelve the idea and forget it because no one is going to read it. It's not going to hit the mark. And please refrain from going to hire somebody to write a proposal because I can guarantee you, I tried to get somebody to write a business plan for me once. I came very close to tearing my hair out because I had to get in touch with them to ask them to change every second element because it just wasn't my language or my tone or my voice or my idea, or there's just so much that was wrong with it that it taught me a great lesson. The same principles I apply in proposal, maybe I can apply them in writing a business plan, right? So you do the same. Develop the skills. Once you've gone through this once or twice, you become an intuitive creator. You no longer have to worry about thinking about it. So there's a question. I mean, this is asked in different ways, but I chose a bike here because I think most of us would probably have dabbled or have had a wish to ride a bike. So if you are a 20-something-year-old, when is the best time to learn to ride a bike? When is the first time to learn how to save money? When is the first time to learn how to get back in class and learn? It's today, it's now. If you do it now, by tomorrow, you already have the experience of having done it. If you do it today, next week, you would have the experience of doing it. If you do it every day, then if somebody asks you, when did you start? You will hardly remember because you would have had so much practice with doing these things that it comes naturally. It's a thing that you just do, and you just do it so effortlessly because you've had practice. You've done it over and over and over again. If you want to become a creator, I'm imagining you're not going to just do it once. If you just want to do it once, then you know what? Maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. But I'd like to believe that you're here because there's something that you want to learn and be able to repeat. If you get yourself into a situation where you're continuously doing some of the things, well, most of the things that I described here, then you're going down the right direction. Take what I've said, turn it into your own framework. You don't have to use it exactly as I do. Freestyle it. Create your own based on what I've suggested to you. But understand what you're doing and know that you are building something that can be used over and over, that will allow you to reach a level of mastery. If you think about an engineer, think about an accountant, you think about a bus driver, right? Office manager. All these areas are areas of specialization. Those people have spent years harnessing what they do, falling in love with what they do, learning the best kept practice, experimenting and finding different ways of doing the same thing in a better way, in a more efficient way. You are no different. Just because we call ourselves creatives and we may not have attended some university or institution doesn't mean that we don't have to work hard to master what we do. We can, and it starts with an intention. If you have an intention to be good at it, if you have an intention to master it, then you have to realize that you can't just write. Just writing doesn't work, guys. You know that cliche that we always see in the movies where there's a writer who's struggling with the first line and they're always taking pieces of paper and throwing them into the bin. Don't be that guy. That is wasteful, and it has a tendency to um, to basically make you feel that you are an imposter and you are not good and you will never be good at what you're trying to do. But if you allow yourself to have a plan of action, to learn from a system and use a system, then you are increasing chances of you really being good at it, falling in love with it, and just being able to be a creator that everybody wants to work with. So do it, work with it, and hopefully it works for you. I know that if you do it every day, it will work for you. Don't be lazy. Don't settle. Don't believe the voice in your head. Don't believe it if it's a voice that tells you that you can't, because we all can. And with a couple of tries, with a couple of experimentation, using the formula that I've given you, you'll definitely be able to be in a position to be able to create your own. Yeah, so I'm ready for questions, and yeah, let's see what questions do you guys have. Thank you.
I've just explained to you. I'm sure you're looking at it through a long lens. You're thinking it's going to take you a long time to get there. It's not. Just start. Once you've started, you will thank yourself. You know? Anyway, questions. Let's take questions.
Sanibonani, Gama Spusiso Wagashozi. My question will be, at what stage of the idea can I say now I'm comfortable to make it a proposal and send it? At what stage do I begin that?
It really depends on you. It depends on your idea. In the beginning, this process of creation is something that will seem like it's a step. It has a few steps involved that you have to go through. But what you'll see is all of everything that I've spoken to you could happen in a matter of 2-3 days once you are in it, because the idea, the nature of the idea, and the work that you have to do to refine it and research it will differ from one idea to the other. But it also depends on your level of comfort. So I think for me, if you think about it this way, if you say here, you've got your thought, right? Then you've got validation. Hey, my handwriting is, yeah. I hope you guys can see it, right? Okay, cool. So your validation, then here you've got research, and I'm gonna say brainstorm. And then here you've got the writing. And then here I'll say you've got simplification. One of the earlier conversations we had with regards to why am I getting rejected? I used to read proposals for a living. And this is the reason why. Because they never got here. You can sort of like see that there is an idea there, but it's buried underneath like some heavy jargon that you have to look for it. So this process here, in the beginning when you start, it's something that will depend on how much time you allow yourself, I guess how dedicated you are, your resources, the size of your idea will determine how long this takes. But this can be hours, it can be days. It really just depends on you and the size of your idea. This process here is something that honestly you need, at best, you need 2-3 days to do. By the time I sit down to write, I'm very clear what I want to write, and I go. But I'm very clear because I've done this. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. So I'm clear now that before I take my idea, I have to go through all of this. Before the director or the famous actor to be convinced of my story, I have to go through all of this.
Yes, sir. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Sanibonani, igama lami uNontethelele Nxumalo. I'd like to ask is it necessary on documentary to have conclusion, maybe like to have a counseling after the show, so that even someone watching at home will be like, got the counseling they got on TV. I don't know if it's...
Filmmakers, you can't be numb to to the world. You can't be numb to your characters. You need to think about the aftermath, of your actions as a filmmaker. What happens when I leave? If you're asking somebody to reveal a secret, what happens after you leave? What if that person that they spoke about comes and shoots them, right? What if you open an old wound? What happens after? Like, it's something that you need to be intentional about as a filmmaker. You need to plan for it. Here, you need to be able to see it.
How possible is it to convince maybe a funder or a channel with something traditional? For instance, you know that we have different tribes.
Commissioning editors are quite, free-thinking people. Free-thinking. And they understand the mandates of every organization they work for very well. So, a topic, you will never be discriminated upon because of the topic you chose. That will never happen. As long as the topic and your proposal and your idea says the right things to the right people at the right time, you're good. I think Sister Ndo can elaborate on that. She knows a lot more about that than me.
It's quite complex. Different channels, different funders will have their requirements. Right now we have answered a question around, can you write your proposal in isiZulu? And most of the broadcasters will have that expectation that you will write it in an official language. Okay, so I was just making this quick example. So we had a producer that submitted a proposal in Afrikaans. And remember, in South Africa, Afrikaans is one of the official languages. And you're sitting with a public broadcaster that is supposed to deliver all official languages. Okay, so the challenge is, how do you then do it? The commissioning editors that are going to evaluate the proposal have come from different backgrounds and they speak different languages. So that is one of the things that you would have to look into. So look at the requirements, because they will say, and you can even make a phone call. The world has become global. How do you take that story that is originated in the indigenous language and make sure that it is accessible to a much larger audience, and that's what you want to do, because if you decide that your story is going to be in Zulu through and through, I'm sure you would have thought about the audience that you are talking to. So if you wanted to end up in KwaZulu-Natal being watched by Zulu people, then maybe it's fine. But if you wanted to travel, then maybe you need to think differently on how you're going to be able to open it up so that a much larger audience is able to tap in and watch. People get tired at times to watch subtitles because they miss the visuals, So you guys in this room have got the opportunity to actually, look at that in an eye that says, as a creative, what do I do to really revive that? The KZN Film Commission has got that mandate. Those are some of the things that we can do, but you're not going to be able to come to them and impose something that is got no potential of being a powerful story and ask them to invest a lot of money because on the grounds that it comes in isiZulu. You're gonna do even extra work to actually convince them that they should go the direction that you want to go. But start opening yourselves up to those kinds of possibilities. The question was around.
I think you're good though. You got answered, right? Okay, cool. Yes, Mrana. You covered. Then beautiful. One of the advantages of understanding your target market is that it helps you become very clear about who's going to watch your film and where those people are, and what's the likelihood, what's the lifespan of your film can be, right? whatever platform you want to put on, you need to optimize your idea to be attractive to that platform. So yeah, that's my last word. I don't know if there's any more questions. Yes, Meneer.
Oh, Sanbon, it's Tembis. I'd like you to help me with the question, why should your story be told? Someone asked me that question and I struggled.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's a very, very important question that will help you filter or judge the strength of your idea. As filmmakers, we tell the stories for a variety of reasons. Our job as filmmakers, in my opinion, is to give society a mirror to be able to see itself. For whatever reason. If you're creating a show about crime, you're saying to society, I want you to see some of the reasons why people commit crimes so that we can be able to identify it, so that we can be able to learn and know how to channel ourselves so we don't become like them, so that we are able to protect ourselves. That could be one of the many reasons, right? But every single one of these reasons goes back to the mirror image. Even if it's a film that's about comedy, you are allowing society to laugh at itself. If it's a tragedy, you're saying, this is what we do to each other. So, okay, so that's how we come to the end of the masterclass, guys. Thank you very much, and yeah.
The KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission. Our kingdom is your stage.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We know each other by now. Introductions have been covered. I've got about 2 hours and 40 minutes, including questions and answers. So I'm just going to try and pace myself up. This session is about proposal writing and pitching. So for this session, I think, you've spoken to Dichaba about moving from an idea to an engaging concept for a television show or your film. Now we're just going to take it a step further, and we just look at the business side of things. Okay, so let's start.
Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to this masterful workshop about proposal writing presented by the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission and hosted by Sunrise Mandleni. My name is Dichaba Ntiti and I'm with Tando Shozi on the stream. Hello, Siswam.
Hello, Dichava. Thank you very much. My name is Tando Shozi, and I'm quite excited to be here.
So just tell me a little bit about how we started with proposal writing and ended up with indie filmmaking.
Okay, yeah, Dichava, I think, in the session, in the first masterclass, there was quite interesting information that came through where you started really about the idea, because it all starts with the idea and how do you harness that idea. And I think from there, with the second masterclass that we are doing today, which I'm going to be hosting, we're going to be talking about indie filmmaking, which is independent filmmaking in full, and just to give, a full picture, the value chain as a whole, so that filmmakers and producers can have a full understanding of the different areas that are involved in the business of producing content. And that's what we'll be doing today.
Because it is a business after all. I mean, we can say, all we want to tell is stories. I want to tell our stories, but to tell a story is business in a sense.
Of course. And
Okay.
I hope this will be valuable for them. Thanks a lot.
Definitely will be valuable for me, Siswam. You can kick it off. I'm listening. I'm watching.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dichava. My name is Tando Shozi. I'm MD at Sunrise Emandleni, a company that I started after about 3 decades at the public broadcaster as head of factual. And I think during that time, I interacted a lot with production companies in the industry, from startups to established ones. And that is why this session is quite critical for me. So today we are on Masterclass 2 for proposal writing and pitching. And I think the session today is going to be looking at filmmaking, and we call it indie filmmaking. I think before we go anywhere, I will just like to say that we're going to be covering two specific issues. We're going to be looking at the production value chain, and later we'll look at the elements of a great proposal. But let's just start by looking at independent filmmaking, which I think is quite critical for everyone who is starting in this industry, and even those that are working in the industry that don't own production companies. I think it's going to be very important to look at this business of independent filmmaking. So, in terms of our session goals, we want to help you to develop an understanding of your role in the filmmaking ecosystem. And when you see that value chain, I want you to sit back as a small production company owner or someone that is working in the industry and have a broader understanding of the business, from where you start with a concept until the content gets distributed and marketed for audiences to see. So it's going to be important for you to really look at where you are, and I understand that when you work and you have been commissioned by a funder like the KZN Film Commission, you tend to do a lot of things. You multitask. You can probably be a writer of that concept, and probably you hold another technical role. Maybe you are a cameraman at the same time. But as you grow, you will find that it's important to specialize. And I think that's what I would like to give in this session for both production companies that want to grow and also individuals that will look at the value chain and say, wow, as much as I do a lot of things, but that is where my area of specialization is. Because when you grow and you start to work for bigger productions, you will find that you will not be doing a lot of different tasks, but you will be a specialist in what you are doing. And the second goal, as I said, will be looking at the elements of a great proposal. So, as we said, this is the value chain. Okay, at the bottom of that screen, you will see that you've got a green shaded areas. And what I've done there is I'm taking you from the start of things, where you work on the concept, and you will see that at the bottom it says low to no cost, because that's where you do your research and development at concept stages and treatment. Okay, and if you are writing yourself, you'll find that there's not really a lot of costs. However, if you go to a pitch, you might be inviting other people to come with you, other team players, to pitch your concept. And of course, they might want to be paid, but there's less costs at concept stage and treatment. Let's move to the next one, which is distribution and finance. If a channel likes your concept, of course, they will ask to commission it, or if a funder likes it, they will fund it. After the evaluation, if you make it, then they will fund your content. But if it's a channel, then they will look at different models of acquiring content. It can be a commission, it can be a co-production, a pre-sale, or a license. We will discuss those in the later sessions that we will have. But then there is other things to look at, which is the finance. The finance is also a negotiation stage where you will be negotiating towards the conclusion of a contract. So there's not much costs that are involved for a production company at that stage. However, if you look at the last two areas there, which is production and marketing, you will see at the bottom where you've got a shaded green area that it says it's high cost for production. And I know that when you get here, this is the area where the bulk of your budget is going to be utilized, okay, because you are in production and you are in post production. So most of the money will go to your cast, they will go to filming, they will go to really going into post production, packaging the content, etc., etc. That is where the bulk of your budget is gonna go to. And when you get into the last part, which is marketing, there's two things that might happen. You need, as a producer, to allocate an amount of funds that you'll be utilizing to market your own contents, okay? But if you are looking at really different platforms that can broadcast that content on a licensing basis, then you would need to be of you would need to remember that they might have their own budgets where they promote their content either on their platforms or any partners or different platforms that they are utilizing as a channel to promote the content that they have acquired. So that's the value chain, and I think it's quite important to actually think about, where you are and where you can place yourself in future. Whilst you are multitasking, it's important to know that my actual area where I'm good is writing concepts, or it is filming, being a camera person, those things are quite important. And so we move to the word independent filmmaking, and I think it's quite important for us to start by defining things, and I have given a nice definition here of independent. And I've given another one for filmmaking. So independent, we said non-affiliated, not subject to control by others, self-managed, self-governed, devises its own rules. Well, I don't know if there's anything like that in this business, because unless you have the funds and you are able to produce your content and you've got a platform where you can place it where there is audiences, you would find yourself in a situation where you need to secure the funding, and you need to actually secure the platform also where your content is going to sit. And in all these areas, there is rules and regulations that govern how you do things. Not unless if you're saying that you're going to place your content on a website. But let's face it, how many people are able to watch your content on your website? So let's be realistic, and not take this thing of independent filmmaking too far. We have to understand that there are rules that govern different platforms where we can place our content, where we know that we are guaranteed that there are viewers that will watch that content. Okay, so filmmaking, as you know, we're saying it's direction, production of films for audiences where they are. okay, and telling stories for distribution on different platforms, okay, creating a business out of the craft. That's what is also important. So independent filmmaking, in short, it could be a feature length or a low budget film, and those are the ones that in most production companies in South Africa you would find yourselves working on. So most film industries are typical examples of independent filmmaking. So there are certain things that we have to consider when we get into this business of filmmaking. So we want to move now to the business side of things. If you are a startup production company, and if you've worked with the KZN Film Commission, you know that there are certain legalities that have got to be in place. You've got to be a legal entity. You're going to have a bank account where your activities for the production are going to take place. You're going to have to meet all kinds of requirements. Of course, if you have a registered entity, you want to register with the CSD Central Database, and with the funders like the KZN Film Commission, you find that they've got certain requirements, like are you Durban based, your crew, or where are you going to be filming? They will have some rules around that. So you would have to be prepared for that. And if you are a small a production company, of course, and you employ people on a project to project basis, you have to think about the team and when exactly are you going to need it so that you don't waste your resources. You don't want to be employing people on a full-time basis when your production is running for 6 months, okay, because that would be a waste. So think about those things in advance as an entity. Business and insurance is quite critical. And of course, the other element that is important is to be noticed. You want people to be able to find you, when they are looking for you as a business. So think about a website, even if there is costs that are involved, let it be a long-term goal that you would have a website where clients can possibly be able to find you and understand what services are you giving. And that is not costly if you consider placing yourself on a Facebook and other social media platforms where you can advertise yourself and the services. But the most important thing as a small entity, you want really to get to a place where clients are able to see you. They must find you, and everybody finds everybody on social media these days. So you don't want to miss out. You want to find yourself in that place. So all those things that I've listed there are quite critical as a business, and you would have to think about it. And if you are a business, of course, think about investing your own funds and resources into projects, because it means you are really confident about what you do and the services that you offer, that you are prepared to invest your own funds and take part of the risk. And people can really, really take you seriously if you are able to do that. So, where does this all begin? Filmmaking begins right here in the script. A great script can take you very far. So, whether you buy it or you write it yourself, it's going to be quite important for you to have a solid story. But even when you've got that, you must remember that it doesn't mean that you've got a free license. There are certain rules. If you're going to want audiences to watch your story, you're going to have to comply to some of the rules and regulations that apply on the different platforms, where you're going to be placing it, whether it's social media platforms or it's broadcasters. You're going to have to really be informed about what their requirements are. The big productions are not there. When you are a small production company, And so it's not recommended for small and startup production companies to really start writing scripts that will place you in a situation where you spend too much in terms of your budget, because the budgets are quite tight. You want to contain everything, so your locations, the choice in terms of the cost, you want to contain those costs so that you are able to execute your project from start to end. You don't find yourself having unrealistic ideas in your script with huge amounts being spent on travel, for instance. You don't want to do that. So planning is going to be quite critical so that you ensure that your script is in line, your content is in line with the budget that is allocated for it. Let's look at the budget itself. When we talk about the budget, there's one thing that is important, and that's the question that you should be asking yourself as a producer. How does the concept speak to the available budget? Is there a great alignment between the costs that you have at your disposal and the idea that you want to execute? So as you go through all the stages of production, make sure that the costs are in line. You don't want to find yourself somewhere in the middle, really losing money before you finish your project. And that's quite important. And then we will move to cost. So there's two areas here when it comes to people as a business. It's going to be the cost. That means your actors, your characters in your documentary, etc., and your crew. That means it's the production team and the people that will be assisting you to execute your project. So this, when it comes to the cost, may be one of the biggest drawing card. But remember, as a small production company, that you don't have access to really using those famous actors. So be mindful of the kinds of people that you are bringing in to execute different roles in your script. That are they fitting those roles? Spend enough time really making decisions on who is best to play in a particular role. And they might not be famous. You might be giving them the first break. They might be really popular after they've been seen in your film, but you might find that you did not have to pay them that much. So it's not always that it's famous people that can make your content be watched. A great script and a great talent that represents a role, a relatable character representing a role, can take your content too far. And so think about those things and invest in people, in the right people, to execute the story that you want to tell. The other thing that we need to think about is the team then behind your project. Teamwork is key in a production. If you don't want to work in a team, then maybe you should be considering another career and not filmmaking. You're gonna be relying on these people to execute your different visions, your vision as a company and your vision in terms of the story that you want to tell. So identify the important roles of your production and fill them in first, aligning them to the available resources, that is the budget. It all boils down to planning. A lack of planning will cost you. It will cost you days that are unnecessary filming. It will cost you days, costs in terms of the people that need to be paid. So when you've got this planned and it's all on paper, then you are definitely sure that the project will be executed from start to end without any hiccups. So let's look at the three areas of production that we are all aware of. We've got pre-production, we've got production, and we've got post. And we've spoken about research and the criticalness of research in a production. Plan your shoot days. Make sure that you create a production plan and a production schedule that gives you information of when and what should be done in terms of your filming. Have a contingency plan. Always have a backup. If as a producer you don't have those skills of thinking about plan B, have amongst your team somebody that can be able to assist you with that. It can save you a lot of money. But if you don't plan, if you just do things, there's nothing as bad as production companies that think they can just pick up a camera and go and film. That is the best, that is the bad thing to do. That is just terrible, because you can waste resources when you do that. You'll end up with a lot of material that you don't need. So think about those things and rely on planning, rely on the right people that you are appointing in different roles. And as I said, it's always useful to have somebody who's always got a plan, who can always come up with a plan B. So think about that as you select the team that will be working with you on this project. Okay, so when we get into post-production, you must mind post-production and know that it all comes together. When you are filming, you'll find that there's different things, different scenes that you are filming. The common scenes are done, probably internal scenes are done at the same time. External scenes are done at the same time. The ones that have got a common location are also done at the same time to reduce costs, So always think about those things, because you'll find that they are important and they are cost saving. But it will not make sense whilst you are working on it, whilst you are filming, because if you're shooting a scene that comes at the end of your film together with the scene that comes at the start of your film, when you are sitting there, it might not make sense. But if you've got it nicely on a plan, it will start to make sense when you get into post-production. There is no story that can be put together at post-production. Every area of production is quite important to ensure that when you get into edit, you've got everything together and your story can come together, because your editor is going to get really frustrated when you load them with content and they don't even know when to start. So schedule everything and mark everything accordingly, so that when it gets to edit, it is easier for your editor to put your story together. It is easier for sound people and all those post-production people to actually assist in executing your project and making sure that it is what you wanted. It meets the vision that you set for yourself. So at the end of it all, you will have to deliver the product to the platform that you have chosen and submit to film festivals. What you will find is that most broadcasters will require the first right to transmit or to premiere your content. So be mindful of the stipulations of a contract that you get into. And when it comes to film festivals, you'll find that they prefer to show content that has been shown on different platforms. So also be mindful of that. You want to bring the broadcaster as early as possible when you are going to work with them on the content, so that they can be involved editorially to manage the content, because they understand the brand alignment of the platform. So you don't want to just wait and go and spend all the money and you don't involve the broadcaster. And then when you are done and you get to them and they say, no, it doesn't meet the editorial or brand and positioning of their platform. So you want to bring them in whilst you are in pre-production, so they walk with you up until the end. So when the film gets to travel locally and beyond the borders of South Africa, you should have plans for the next project. There's nothing that is as bad as actually realizing after the end, after you've finished and you've delivered it, that you don't know exactly what is it that you're gonna do next. So whilst you're working on the one project, you should be planning the next project that you're gonna be working in, because you don't want to lose that momentum. So I think that covers it for today, and I think it seals it up with that Barry Jenkins quote. To me, no matter who you are casting for which role, if something is authentic, usually you can mine something good there. So it doesn't matter whether you've got famous actors on your content, or not famous content actors in your content as a filmmaker, and especially when you are starting out. But if you have a great script, it's gonna really serve a good purpose. If you've got the right people casted in the right roles, it's gonna help a lot. And if you've got a team and you've selected a team of creatives that are executing your vision, it's going to assist a lot. So understand the value chain and the business side of things. So we're not just telling stories, but this craft is actually putting food on the table. So it's important that you really throw yourself at each and every part of filmmaking and ensuring that it is done correctly, because in that way you are able to save a cost. So I hope that in this session I've managed to speak to two people: the person who's got a production company and the person who's working in the industry. And that with the value chain that we have given, you are able to see yourself that this is the area where I can be able to contribute. And as a company, you are able to look at the whole value chain and say, am I having some people in my team that can be able to speak to all these roles that are involved in filmmaking? And as people who are starting out, I think the value chain is quite helpful to actually say, even when I am beyond just getting funded by the KZN Film Commission only, and I start to get funding from other entities and even broadcasters, and I start to explore pre-sales and co-productions, and my content travels, I am aware of my strengths, as an entity and as an individual, and I know where I can really contribute better, even if I multitask at the moment, but I know that my strength are in this area. That is the one thing that I wanted to communicate with this presentation. And it's the first part. And before we move to the second part of this presentation, which I spoke about earlier, elements of a great proposal, I think it's going to be quite important for us to just say what goes into a winning proposal. And what is a proposal? A proposal is a written way to pitch your film, and it contains a number of working titles. It is an overall vision for the film that summarizes the plot, the plot being what's the story about. And depending on the project and the genre or the format that you are working on, the proposal document pages will vary. Each funder will give specifics on what is it that meets their requirements in terms of the proposal that you are putting together. And in this masterclass, most of the commonly found working titles in most genres of a proposal will be discussed and explained to respond to the question, what really goes into a good proposal. And this process will lead to a creation of a template proposal on proposal writing that will become a resource for producers. And next time when you want to really look at how do you write a proposal, you can see something like what I have here on screen right now, where you've got a title, a genre, a number of episodes, an introduction, a background, synopsis, and all those things that go into a proposal. Okay, so when you open it up, of course, you just want to do that. People must know what the title is, and etc., etc. But there's three things that come to mind. When you look at the background, plot synopsis and synopsis, you have to be able to differentiate what is it and what is its role in the proposal that I'm writing. So understand what the background information is. Which really could be looking at the introduction, defining certain complex terms, historical context. It will give you the current events that have a bearing on your concept, so that's the background, and it's very important for a proposal, but I always say probably you don't want to push forward when you write a proposal a background. You want something that is going to grab the reader so that they want to read more. And maybe the background could come, after you've pushed forward your synopsis. A plot synopsis is more detailed and it briefly explains what happens in the story, who the main characters are, what they want, and who and what stands in their way. That's a plot synopsis. Also very important in proposal writing, but I always like to push forward a synopsis. It's one thing that you can utilize not only to summarize what your content is about, but also to sell that content to the reader in your proposal. So think about how you write that synopsis. And I've seen some people who write synopsises and it becomes a long page. Sometimes it goes for about 2 pages, 3 pages. Separate between what a treatment is and what a synopsis is. In this case, I would like you to think about a synopsis as one of the things that are going to be in your first page, where you just summarize and at the same time you are able to sell the content to the reader so that they can stay with you and they want to read from the beginning to the end of what you are proposing. So the next area that I'd like us to look at is on this whole thing about ideas. All of us have got ideas, but if you don't write that idea on paper, it might just go to waste. I've got something interesting there on the side, which with 2 characters, who's one of them saying that I've got many ideas, and another character asks them, so give me one. And you find that they say, no, I cannot talk about it in front of people. It's very important for you to really be the one person that knows more about your content than anybody else. You have to be able to talk about it. You have to be able to speak about it confidently. You have to be able to represent your content confidently. If you can't do it yourself, then you find somebody else to do it, but they will take all the credit. So it's better if you familiarize yourself with your content and be the best person to represent your content. And there are things that can assist you in ensuring that you are able to do that. A tagline, for instance, is quite critical, which it provides a compelling way of describing your show in one sentence. If you cannot explain it in one sentence, then it means you don't have a tagline. Then it means there's a lot that you still have to do. A concept is quite important as well. What is the program about, or what is your film about? Where is it set? Who is in it, your cast, what is its intentions, you can list your objectives, etc. What is the big idea, what is happening and where is this happening? Those are some of the things that you can answer and write in under the concept. And what you will find as you are writing all these things, you will find that if you respond, you've got an idea, you respond to these different elements. By the end of it all, you've got a proposal. And all you need to do is just try and shape it. We've already spoken about the objectives. So let's go to characters or your actors, and that's also very important, as we've mentioned in the earlier session. So you have to describe the character, an actor in your film, with particular attention to their role in the story and why their experience is critical in your story. So, characters and character breakdown in your proposal is very important. Different genres, of course, will require you to deal with this element differently. For instance, if you are working on a documentary, your character explanations will be different from when you are working in for instance, a work of animation. With animation, you might want to go to much detail and even get to the design, of your characters. How are your characters designed, and what does that represent, in your story? You might want to explore it to that extent when it comes to fictitious characters, so it's different than when you do a documentary. So be mindful of the fact that these elements of a proposal that we have listed are not following in an orderly fashion, but each one might be important. But as you go through them, think about the genre that you are working on, and if a specific element speaks to that genre. And when you are done with all that, then you can look at your overall proposal and see if it meets everything that is required by the potential funder or the producer that has got funding that you want to access. Now, we all have ideas, of course, but they have to live on paper. And we now go into the format, if you've got a format. A format is quite important because it is where the building blocks of your content will be explained. What about these elements of your show or your film will make your show successful? You will be able to explain all these things under the format so that the person who's reading can almost see it. So the issues around language, the language that you'll be utilizing, and even the duration is going to be important. If it is a talk show, you might even go to an extent of explaining the set and the set elements. Okay. So we now move to another element, which is a target audience. We've spoken about it earlier, but I think target audience will go into your proposal any proposal will have to really look into the target audience. So when you think about the target audience, is whom are you targeting to watch your film? That's the first thing. But if you're going to put it on a platform, you need to understand that platform, or even go as deeper as understand all the content of the platform and the specific slot that you are targeting, so that you are able to talk to that, So if you are talking about a target audience, and the viewers that will find your content interesting and they want to engage with it, you might even want to go further and create a persona. A persona assists a lot in giving a human face and a real person the real person for whom the show is aimed at. Okay, so I have now gone and described, how do you discuss or even break down a persona for your program. And I think it works better if you work as a team, so you have now your idea and you put it together and you call your whole team and you say, let's sit down and really come up with a persona for this show. This will function as a yardstick against which your program can be tested as you brainstorm with your team and create this persona. The following questions need to be regularly asked. Will this show or episode speak to the persona? You see how the persona is now assisting you to actually stay in line, because whenever you gauge the show against the persona, you can understand if it moves out of your persona, because you're describing all kinds of things when you deal with a persona. You describe the person, the gender, are they male, are they female, are they staying in a township, are they staying in the suburb, do they drive when they go to work, or what music are they listening to, which background do they come from, where do they work, and all those things. So you would know that these are the people that I'm targeting, and you create a person. You can even give them a name so that you understand exactly that Sbongile, who stays in Guamashu, is the person that we are targeting, and she is a single mother, and she's got a car, and she works in that particular place, and she knocks off at this time, and she comes back home and she sits and she watches her favorite shows. And we know that at this particular time we will be able to find her, because she's back from work and she is relaxing and watching her favorite shows. That is what the persona is used for in terms of creating it for the content that you are working on. Let's talk about the look and feel, and what it assists with in terms of your proposal. It assists the person who's reading to visualize your idea. What is the look and feel for your show? Where and how will it be presented? Describe the mood, and other people called the look and feel a mood board. You describe it in colors. It tell us, if it's a talk show, you will go into the set. Tell us about the colors. How will you be filming? Most people would think if the issues are deep, they are dark, so they will tone down the colors and all that. That is all that goes into your look and feel. And you'll find that your creative directors and all that will be able to assist you in penning this part if you're not really good in going into the look and feel and actually describing in a visual manner the story that you are dealing with. So do bring in people within the team that can assist you in this regard. And then we move to topics and themes. They are quite critical as well, because that's where your content is going to be coming from. A topic is one thing, but the themes that you are dealing with are another thing. So that is where you will find really value in the content, and you will find that you can be able to diversify. You're not dealing with the same thing. So you have the first segment, you're dealing with one theme within the topic, and you go to the second, you still deal with the things that you would have dealt with when you started. Think about that. So let's go to this contested area, of the proposal writing, which is entertainment, value, and content strategy. What do we mean by the term entertainment? I think entertainment is just beyond singing and dancing. That's what a lot of people assume when we talk entertainment. But it can be the emotional engagement, with the content that the viewer experiences when they are watching. Okay. So TV is about emotional engagement. What is the intention of this proposal? What emotions are viewers meant to experience when engaging with it? Are they going to be joyous? Are they going to be excited? Are they going to be happy? Or are they going to be fulfilled in any way? That is quite important to draw in the audience with the entertainment values that are going to really connect them to your content. That is what we mean with entertainment value, and it's a critical part of your proposal writing. Your content strategy is how you are going to approach your content. Where will you get your content from? It's very important to think about the access. When you are probably doing a documentary, you're gonna have to have access to the characters that are going to be featured in your documentary. And if you are doing a film, you're gonna have to have access to the characters that are going to become actors in your film. So all those will be explained in the content strategy and how you are going to approach it. What makes your show going? What is this thing that is going to make your show really stand out? So the treatment, I've explained it earlier. It refers to the realization of the show on paper in detail. So it's not just a synopsis, but it's blow by blow in terms of what is it that your content will be covering. It's like telling a story when you write a treatment. From a frame to a frame, you will be explaining in detail what your content is all about. And then we get to screenplay structure, especially for filmmakers that are doing your once-off films. Think about that. You're gonna have to really explain this. This is a visual industry that we are operating in, and the person reading your film proposal needs to visualize your story. When you close your eyes, you almost see it. And in this case, and a very simple structure will work very well. Think about the 3-act structure, for instance. It's very, very important to actually put it down on paper when writing your proposal. So the first act, of course, being the setup, the second one, which is act 2, being the conflict. Often this will be where you expand on what the conflict is until it reaches a crisis. And when you get to act 3, then it's where the conflict will be rising to a crisis that eventually gets resolved. So those are all important to include in your proposal. The running order is very important because we need to be clear what the viewer will see from minute to minute. Anything that you put in your content must be justified. You have to explain why is it that you have each and every element that you have in your proposal must be justifiable. From the opening logo, to the first thing that the viewer is going to see. The second thing they're going to see, that's the running order. And people always develop a kind of a table format to explain the running order. Think about that. It's very important, and it will be you would have to include it in the proposal elements that you write. And then in terms of positioning, we've spoken about what about the concept makes it right fit for the platform that you have chosen. It's very important that you explain that in detail in terms of the proposal that you will be writing. And now let's get into the finances. Finances are quite important. We've spoken about the budget, and it's important. There's three things that you have to think about here. It's the production plan, it's the budget, it's the financial plan. And these are three different documents that you have to think about when you think about the finances for your project. So when you do the production plan, you talk about how will the show be realized, what will be done, and when will it be done. So it's all in the planning. What plans have you got in place? What will you do when? That's very important to explain. And when you now go into a financial plan, it's very important to explain it as well, because in the financial plan, let's say you get into a co-production, the funder will be interested in knowing where will the funds come from. And I think I spoke a bit about you as a producer putting in your own finances or your own resources into the project. What it means is that you've got so much confidence in it that you are prepared to make a contribution to it and take part of the risk. So it's not only the funders that will be putting money on it and taking a risk, you are also putting your own. And people can ask, where do I get the money? I'm just a small production company. Remember, your skills coming in can be costed. It can be a line item in the budget, and it says that there is money that you are contributing. If you've got cameras, you've got some equipment, you've got editing facilities, you can cost that. And because you are able to cost it, you can make it your own contribution into the film, ensuring that the idea that you have becomes a reality. Okay, so that's where you can think about. It's not about just finding money and ensuring that you probably go to your relatives and ask for a loan from the bank, etc., that you can be able to realize a situation where you make a contribution to your project. It is just looking at some of the resources that you have within your company that you can cost, and then you can say, these are my contribution to the project. And I can tell you one thing, that when you get into a co-production, these become very important. You get to be taken seriously because you are prepared to put in your own risks. And we've discussed the budget in detail, and I think it's quite clear that you would have to have a budget with the line items. Even when you are a small production and you are used to working with the KZN Film Commission, that does not require you to actually account for the costs. You will find that as you grow and you work with channels and broadcasters, that they do require you to open a separate bank account at times and account for each line item and what you did with the money. So get used to the habit of doing things the right way and ensuring that you keep the receipts where you are required to do so that when you grow, you are used to doing things the right way. Don't just get into the habit of utilizing line items and not accounting for them, because as you grow, you'll find that it's difficult to execute projects because you are used to just doing work without really keeping a record of what you are doing and being able to account. Now, when you come to the company profile and the capacity, it's quite critical in the proposal writing process to state that, and I've spoken a bit about you as an entity being seen and utilizing the website and all these other platforms or social media platforms to be able to really market yourself and the work that you are doing. Aside from that, in a proposal, you're going to be required to actually state what the company is. Your vision and mission statements will go under the company profile and capacity, the people that you have in the team, and what their expertise is. That is quite important. And think about little biographies of the creative team that you are bringing instead of just including a whole CV. That's going to be quite important. A little biography that is just specific and it talks to the project that you are working on is very important. Look, I mean, you don't want to be mentioning things that are irrelevant, that don't have anything to do with the proposal. The person who's reading is going to be interested in one thing: the team that you have. Do they have the ability to execute the project that you are proposing? Okay, so when you write that biography, think about that and foreground those things so that you give confidence to the person who's reading that, these guys have done this before and they can be able to do it. And even when people are being given an opportunity for the first time to direct a film, give us the motivations of why that person is the right person to execute that role. So that is how you do it. So it's not only when you've got experience that you can be able to speak to a company profile and capacity, but even when you are starting out, your motivation will hold as part of the things that you put forward as key creatives and the team of key creatives on this specific project. So think of it that way. So that will be it about the key creatives and the company profile. And we're coming to the end of the session. And in your conclusion, and some people just put together a director's motivation. That is also very good because it tells a story of why you came up with this content, and why this content is so important to you as a person. You can do your conclusion in any way, but always make sure that you start strong and you end strong. It doesn't mean because you are coming to the end of your proposal writing that you just, end abruptly. You want to start and end in a strong way. So remember, you can go back to your motivation of why you're doing this and probably put a little director's motivation. Your company probably can have somebody that writes that motivation of why this film and why it's important and why do you think that it will actually be realized. All those things can go into your powerful conclusion. So we've covered a lot during this session and the past sessions. And this question still remains: what's your story? I think at the start of this, we went through a phase where you've got an idea, but you don't know what to do with it. And I think during the first session, we covered how do you harness an idea? How do you utilize research to solidify your idea? How do you use brainstorming and a system that has been discussed to actually enrich that content so that you can look at it and say, now I've got a concept that is engaging enough for viewers to be able to watch. We then moved to the business side of things, because as much as we are in the business of storytelling, we have described what are the requirements as a young person, as an entity at entry level that you should meet to be able to do business. So we went through some different requirements. You register your company and all those things that we have discussed. And when we finished doing that, we gave you a view of the whole value chain, from start where you write your concept to where you distribute your content and have it marketed. And all that information is because of one thing, that you are telling your story. So, what will be that story? And I always say that the good place to start is just around you. Stories are all around us. So, think about it. Think about the ideas that you are sitting with now that you've got a strategy of how do you really utilize a system to tell a story that could be a concept that could be seen in a film. Think about that, but start with the things that are around you. I always say, because I'm big on documentaries, that stories are always around us. Don't start to tell complex stories on, I can make an example with what Dichaba said on climate change. It can be quite an involved process, but if you tell a story of something that you've experienced, something that it can be a great start in this business of filmmaking and storytelling. So think about it. And thank you very much for sitting through this session. And that brings us to the end of our first session. Session 2 of this masterclass follows shortly.